The Notre Dame Fighting Irish punched their ticket to the national championship game. And for James Franklin, it's another tough pill to swallow, as Penn State finishes the year 13-3, which is the best season James Franklin has ever had at Penn State in terms of win percentage, in terms of total wins, and yet he is 0-3 against top 10 power-rated teams per ESPN's FPI. He has not beaten a single team of consequence, of similar talent profile. Won all the small games, won some contested games against respectable opponents like USC on the road or Minnesota on the road, or I think SMU and Boise State were respectable opponents, but not top 10, certainly not top 5. Just a tough pill to swallow for Penn State, who played a good game in some aspects, an awful game in other aspects, quarterback. And for Notre Dame, I think it's the second game in a row where Freeman has outcoached and outplayed and beat a team that has had an advantage over his in the trenches and that has overall advantages in many parts of the roster, I believe. So Freeman just continues to rise above in my power ratings. And now, for a team in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish who have not won a national championship since 1988, pardon me, and who have not won a postseason game before this year of consequence in the 21st century, they have won 3 New Year's Six Bowl-esque wins in a row, and now they are playing in their second national championship game of the 21st century with an opportunity to win their first national championship since 1998. Or 1988. Keep getting those dates mixed up. But anyway, both outside the 21st century, and for Notre Dame fans, it probably feels honestly like the same exact year. It's been so long. Proud of you and your team for getting there, and just what a job by Marcus Freeman, Mike Denbrock, and Al Golden. Before we get into this game and I give you just my instant reaction to this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. I know many of you probably think you're subscribed, but many of you are also not. The majority of people who watch College Football with Sam are not subscribed, so please do so to help us reach 30,000 subs. Like the video to get us into the algorithm, and also hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when we go live Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. When we go live tomorrow for the Cotton Bowl, I'll try and go live at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, a few minutes before kickoff. And also, when we go live immediately following the Cotton Bowl, like a half hour or maybe less after the conclusion of the game, where we will do an instant reaction. We will be announcing the winners of our giveaway, 4 winners of the giveaway tomorrow at halftime of the Cotton Bowl. And also, if you want to support the channel, make sure to check out the Patreon page, merchandise store, and also join our Discord server, which is free via the links in the description and down below in the pinned comment. But Notre Dame beats Penn State. Final score, Notre Dame 27, Penn State 24. And there was just so much in this game that went wrong for both teams. Riley Leonard threw 2 awful interceptions, one to a defensive end and Dani Dennis-Sutton. Allar threw multiple picks, several of which were negated by pass interference calls or bad holds on Notre Dame. And by bad holds, I mean bad holds like, come on, Notre Dame could have done better than that in the secondary. There were bad holds overall, though, in this game, too. There were missed calls on Julian Fleming, who was holding a Notre Dame defensive back, and Emil Wagner was constantly holding and even face-masking Abdul Carter because Abdul Carter was punking him and beating him every time, and I mean every time, they matched up. So, my first takeaway from this game is that I feel vindicated, in my opinion, in my preview, that Notre Dame is the better coaching staff. And I also feel vindicated in my opinion that Penn State is the better roster. Penn State, they had 4 sacks and 4 TFLs. They had 204 rushing yards for 4.9 yards per carry and 3 rushing touchdowns, all to Nicholas Singleton. Both of their backs had over 80 rushing yards. Even Allar had some rushing yards, and so did Tyler Warren. Notre Dame was held on 42 carries to 116 rushing yards, 2.8 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. And Riley Leonard nearly suffered a massive concussion, and there have been jokes already on Twitter that he played concussed. And I hope that he didn't. I hope that he's okay. And I hope that Anthony Knapp, for example, is okay. He left the game. Notre Dame's players were dropping like flies. And the admirable part about Notre Dame was that it mattered, but they responded well. They won the second half. They outcoached Penn State. Their special teams won them the game in large part because Notre Dame, I know they didn't average as many yards per punt as Penn State did, 39.3 yards per punt to Penn State's 42, but Notre Dame was often punting from Penn State territory or from midfield. That's why 4 of their 4 punts landed inside the 20. Penn State was often punting from well inside their own territory, which is why only 1 of their 5 punts landed inside the Notre Dame 20. Notre Dame was winning the field position battle here, like straight up. They were winning that. And I think that this game ultimately was a game of inches. It was a phone booth fight. It was a rock fight. And while Penn State was better in the trenches, they had the better O-line, they had the better D-line. At one point, Penn State looked like the dramatically better team. But Notre Dame, when they kicked that field goal, I got a sense with how they went into the locker room that they believed that they could win and that they were confident and that Penn State was a little bit ashamed that they allowed the field goal. It felt like the momentum shift started there. And maybe it didn't because Penn State stole back momentum at points and at times looked more energized. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame just continues to win. They're 14-1. They are the 7th seed. They are going to be finished ranked inside the top 2 no matter what because they've punched their ticket to the national championship game. And they took advantage of Penn State's weaknesses, I think, better than Penn State took advantage of Notre Dame's weaknesses, if I'm being honest. Notre Dame averaged 8.6 yards per pass attempt. They had a touchdown, 2 picks, 267 passing yards. They were 21 of 31. They got much better through the air as the game progressed. Mike Denbrock figured out Tom Allen, I think in a better way than Kotelnicki did figure out Al Golden. Now, I think both OCs in watching this game outcoached both DCs, but the gap between Denbrock and Allen was bigger than the gap between Kotelnicki and Golden. And that is why, along with, I believe, quite frankly, a better culture with Notre Dame and better game management from Freeman compared to Franklin, and also better QB play. Leonard was much more accurate than Allar. Steve Angeli was infinitely more accurate than Allar, and he maybe should get the MVP. If Notre Dame doesn't drive down the field and get a field goal entering halftime, I don't know if they win. That was big right there. Hindsight, I know, is 2020. At the time, it wasn't known how big the effect was. It was a win, but was it a big boost? I don't know. But in hindsight, that was massive right there. And it all comes full circle if you're Penn State. It really, really all comes full circle. It's just gotta sigh. That's what you gotta do if you're a Penn State fan. You know, I picked Penn State to win. I only regret picking Penn State to win because it's James Franklin in a top 10 game. And I've given a lot of benefit of the doubt to Penn State. I still think their roster this year was better than their end of season record is going to show. Like 13-3, lost to every great near elite team they played, but they could have beaten those teams. You know, they lost to Notre Dame by 3. They lost to Ohio State by 7. They lost to Oregon by 8. 1-score losses that could have easily been wins. I think for Penn State, the season's a failure. And maybe I'm going too extreme with that. But I said at halftime on my live play-by-play of this game, if Penn State chokes this halftime lead, the season's a failure because you're clearly the better team. It's all in front of you. Just go out and win. And they couldn't do it. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, Tyler Warren's gone. He's your offensive alien. Abdul Carter's gone. He's your defensive alien. Maybe Nicholas Singleton, if he comes back, which sounds likely in 2025, maybe he can be your new offensive alien. But you need receivers, and you don't have any great receivers right now. And you're going to miss some pieces on the O-line, and Carter being gone on defense is a big deal because when Penn State has him, they only allow opponents to average, 2.5 yards per carry, which is basically what Notre Dame averaged. Without him, opponents average 4 yards per carry. So how does Penn State's defense look next year, where they lose some players at secondary? They probably lose Kobe King. They lose a lot of their defensive line, like a huge part of their two deep. Could this be Penn State's worst defense in years under Franklin? Certainly looks like it, at least from what I'm telling myself and what I'm reciting. And Allar has just been awful in big games. Straight up, I mean, in this game, 12 of 23 for 135, 5.9 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, a pick, and 2 or 3 picks that were taken off the board because Notre Dame's defensive backs thought they could hold and get away with it because Penn State's receivers are not that good. Well, they didn't get away with it. Notre Dame's right tackle got away with holding. Penn State's wide receiver got away with holding, but the refs actually made the correct call for the PI and the holding in the secondary on both teams. When the DBs, and officiating is bad in college football, I'm not blaming that for the Penn State loss at all because Penn State got away with some. The DB holds and PIs are called correctly, but when Fleming is holding a Notre Dame DB or Emil Wagner is face masking Abdul Carter and that's not called, that's frustrating. I mean, I'm watching on the All-22 film, the Skycam, and I can see it happening. It's as clear as day. I don't know why that's not being called. It's illegal. Gives an unfair advantage, especially when, Notre Dame's DBs are better than Penn State's wide receivers. They just are. So that hold by Fleming is negating that advantage that Notre Dame should have. It's the same thing with Penn State's deal on a Notre Dame's O-line. Like, Penn State got 4 sacks despite Carter being held on basically every play. Dennis-Sutton was even held by Anthony Knapp or Tosh Baker on one play. Still got to Riley Leonard. Like, officiating in college football is just awful right now. But the plus side of this game is that it was an all-time classic. 27-24, Notre Dame wins. Some statistics for you all. Notre Dame 11 of 17 on third down, Penn State 3 of 11 on third down. That really was the difference in the game, is the fact that Notre Dame was very efficient on third down, Penn State was not. But Penn State was 2 of 2 on fourth down, and that helped them very early. They went for it early on some fourth downs and got paid big dividends from that. Notre Dame had 283 total yards to Penn State's 338, or 383 total yards to Penn State's 339. Notre Dame had 2 turnovers to Penn State's 1, 23 first downs to Penn State's 20. Both teams had almost exactly 30 minutes of possession. Penn State 30-04, Notre Dame 29-56. Really can't get closer than that. This was, in all honesty, a good game. Very entertaining game. And what happened is Penn State won the trenches, but in a very similar theme to that Oregon game, Notre Dame won the air. And they honestly won it by a wider margin than Penn State won the trenches, especially because in the second half, Notre Dame manned up enough in the trenches to stop the bleeding a little bit. And their passing offense came wide open. And as for Allar, the low throw to Singleton, he throws that higher and Penn State gets a touchdown instead of kicking a field goal. Guess what? Final score, 28, probably 24. Penn State, if he just makes that throw. And if he doesn't throw that pick, Penn State goes into overtime with the better roster. They might come out with a win. Or maybe he throws it away, live to see another down, and maybe they drive down and they kick the game-winning field goal. It's a comedy of errors. It's a tragedy for Penn State. And I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say for the Nittany Lions, the season is a failure. It is. This, I think, in large part was the year, and I've said that even since 2023. With all the talent they have, that this was the year. 2024 was the year. Now, maybe they can do something in 2025 the Nittany Lions can, but that's to be seen, especially after another year where Franklin just can't get it done. For Freeman, next year is the year, and this year might be the year too. Now, I've picked against Notre Dame a lot this season, regular season and postseason, and they've impressed me. And I think that Freeman is building something special in South Bend, building something deadly. I believe in Marcus Freeman now. Didn't even a few weeks ago, a few months ago, at least to the scale that I do now. They can win it all this year, and with how they've been recruiting, with how many young bodies have contributed to the success of the Fighting Irish this season, they can win it all next year. Whom's just to say that they can't? They run a really good operation. They have a wonderful set of coordinators, assistant coaches. Marcus Freeman's built a good culture. He's an elite leader. I think that he's a top 10 head coach right now. Now, is he as good as Nick Saban or Kirby Smart or Ryan Day or Dan Lanning or, I don't know. I think if he wins it all, there's no question that he has to be viewed in high regard, or at least in higher regard than even his biggest supporters probably view him right now, for sure. Notre Dame's first national title since 1988, and their biggest win in literally over 3 decades. Good for him. Good for Notre Dame. You got to be happy for them. So, go Nittany Lions and go Fighting Irish. This was an incredible game to watch. It's just a gut punch if you're a Penn State fan, and it was a game full of heart attacks if you were a Notre Dame fan too, but you came out and you won, and you found a way to win in a way that I did not think was very possible. If you told me before the game that Penn State outgained Notre Dame in rushing offense that way, and that's all you told me, I may have been pretty confident that they were going to win, especially if you told me they led at half. Especially that, since Penn State is typically known for being a pretty good second half team. But they did not, because Notre Dame found an unconventional way for them to win, and that is the sign of good coaching. That is the sign of veteran players. That is the sign of a good culture. They won through the air. That's basically how Notre Dame won the game. They won via the air on both sides of the ball. Their passing defense and their passing offense. And of course, their special teams, which is a conventional Notre Dame way to win. But really, the defense and also the offense set them up in that position. So for James Franklin, it's back to the drawing board. For Marcus Freeman, it is brought back to the drawing board, but in a different way. One more game with a chance to be the best team of the 2024 season in terms of achievement. Lay it all out, throw the kitchen sink, see what happens between Texas and Ohio State tomorrow. We've had a lot of chaos this season in college football. Maybe Notre Dame can be the epitome of the 2024 season and beat one of Texas or Ohio State, who they would be an underdog to. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and also hit that notification bell so that way you can get notified when new content from College Football with Sam drops. I appreciate you very much, and also share the video around to others who you know enjoy the sport of college football and love it as I do and as you do, and comment your thoughts down below so that we can have a conversation, because I want to know what you are thinking. And join our Discord server where we talk college football 24/7 via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Thank you to my Heisman Patreon members, Crash2488, Brasco Rascal, and Kylo OH. Thank you to my All-American Patreon members, Chris Lane, Ismar, and Tyler Nye. And thank you to my All-Conference members, John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, Joshua Jorgensen, and Will Loftus. Make sure to check out my merchandise store and or Patreon page, or super chat down in the comment section below to support the channel. The Patreon page and merchandise store links are in the description or down below in the pinned comment. I hope you have a wonderful day. It is December, so Merry Christmas and also Happy New Year. I will see you guys soon.